What?
I don't have a microphone.
Oh, the bottle brush bug guy? Okay, right. Okay, is everybody ready? Okay, I think we're ready. The mayor's ready. Grant, now our Assistant Service Director, our Urban Forester, and our AV Director. You're ready. Okay, there we go. Like to call the Wednesday, June 26th monthly meeting of the Bexley Tree and Public Gardens Commission to order and call the roll. Mary McMunn.
Here.
Susan Quintan's here. Sheila Straub.
Here.
Dave Wakeman.
Here.
The final meeting of more than 2 decades of service to the city of Bexley. Celeste Williams, I think, is out of town. Jim Wilson.
Here.
Linda Zubnik.
Here.
Then we have Ellen Bowden, ex officio. All right. Mayor Kessler is here.
Here.
Okay. Elena Andrews, staff consultant.
Here.
Grant Archer.
Here.
Barb is coming in.
And Barb is coming in as we speak, so we will speak for her. Barb Giller, alternate, is here, and Troy Markham had a conflict with his new date, so he is unable to join us. However, we do have another guest joining us, and Mayor Kessler, I'd like to ask you to introduce Mark, please.
Yes, for those who have not met Mark Fischel, Mark is our city attorney. He's been our city attorney for 9 years, really? 9?
I just saw that.
Ugh, 9 years.
Ugh.
Ugh.
Has it been a fruitful relationship with all the Uggs?
I very much enjoy working with Mark.
Okay,
He's insightful. He's witty sometimes. And always entertaining. I think, so we have been talking among the tree commission planning team about having our zoning council present whenever we have actual hearings on applications. This would have been the first meeting. Catherine Cunningham, who's our zoning council, is not available for this meeting. So Mark is here in her stead.
okay. So,
So by the way, so please excuse him as he bows out after the applications.
Okay.
He's not indentured to the entire meeting.
indentured. That's a pretty
A
flavor.
loaded word.
Okay, all right. So, Mayor and Mark, have you worked out how you will be participating, if at all, or if all the time, with the decision-making or the discussion?
We haven't worked it out. I thought I would do kind of what I do with city council, which is chime in when I think I need to, or if you folks have questions, ask them when you have them. But you know, I would rather just sit here and observe unless or until something requires my involvement.
Okay, so it's a little bit more casual than having
Yes,
a regular spiel in
right.
line. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then forward we go. So we have a quorum, and Barb, you've been appointed as an alternate. Celeste is not here. And now I'm looking for approval of the minutes of May 15th, 2024. As sent yesterday by email.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Motion is made and seconded that we approve the minutes of May 15th, 2024 as sent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Additions to the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? If there are none, our agenda is set for the meeting. We've welcomed Mark. We could welcome you again. I just had it on my notes, Mark. So in order to facilitate time, a great resource or a lack of resource for everyone, we're going to move the landscape applications to the very beginning of the meeting, and which allows our applicants then to leave in good time, and also Mark to get back to his other day jobs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Wilson to call the first applicant.
Okay, our first application is for 394 South Columbia. This is an application we heard before, and I think we decided table since it was coming to BZAP, and I think it's back before us. Just a reminder of our procedure. First of all, reminder to everyone that we're live on YouTube, so your comments will resound around the world. But
Or at least, yeah.
we treat everyone with respect. In particular, we don't make negative comments about city staff, city employees, other members of this commission or other commissions. Our process is we'll hear from our staff consultant regarding the project. Then we'll hear from the applicant. The applicant has up to 10 minutes. You don't have to take 10 minutes if you don't want to. We will then, if there are any residents interested in the project that want to speak in opposition, each of them would have up to 3 minutes. We'll hear then from any residents that want to support it. If there are any such comments, then our applicant would again have an opportunity of up to 5 minutes to respond. Then, commission members, we will first ask questions of the applicant and staff. We will try to finish all of our questions, and then we will discuss the application as a commission. Everyone good on that?
Reminders along the way are always helpful.
I'm fairly good at those.
Yes, you are.
Excellent. Okay, so again, so this is TPGR 24-3, the right-of-way plantings. We have Karen McCoy here with MKSK to present, and this came before us a few months ago. And there were the columns in the right-of-way, and there was the row of boxwood, and then a row of liriope, and then a bed that came right up to the sidewalk. And we had discussed moving the liriope.
Moving water.
Moving whatever we can do.
Keep going. We'll keep.
Moving the liriope back so we could have a foot of lawn adjacent to the sidewalk, so none of the mulch would kind of come into the sidewalk and obstruct any of the pedestrian traffic there. We tabled the application because it was going to be going before BZAP because of the columns. The columns then were built in the right of way. On March 28th of this year, BZAP reviewed the project and they granted a variance for the 3 36-inch high columns with a 4-inch limestone cap to be located within the city right-of-way with the condition, with 3 conditions. One, that the columns should be located 2 feet off of the driveway and sidewalk, that the project is subject to city council approval and of a hold harmless agreement, and that it is subject to the landscape plan approved by the Tree and Public Garden Commission. So it is back for us now. So it has been given the variance by BZAP. And so now they're looking for our approval of their landscape plan. The plan, to my knowledge, has not changed. We had the recommendation to, again, move that liriope back. Grant, if we could pull up the 2 photographs that are in it's a PDF document that says images. The very last one. So you can see this is the house. And so it is, and so basically what I'll do is, Karen, I'm going to kick it over to you and allow you to kind of describe the where things are. You were going to speak with the owner as well in terms of what they potentially wanted to do and all of that. So with that, I'll give it over to you.
So, is your microphone on, Karen? Just green.
It is now.
Okay. Thank you.
So what difference in this planting installation from the actual plan is that boxwood hedge is set further back into the yard, and there is 2 feet of bed area in front of them and the line of liriope. So there's obviously space there, and I talked to the homeowner, and they would obviously like to keep the hedge. They would like to see a formal hedge. They've agreed that, they will keep it in good condition. If there is an issue with blight, then, they would deal with replacement at that time. They'd be happy to do that. They do have this maintained, and I assure you, they will not have dead hedges in their front yard. And they would be willing to move the liriope back and establish a sod line if that's what is desired in front of that, adjacent to the sidewalk, or they would add additional liriope plantings or even possibly a line of carex in front of that if that's, whatever is amenable to the Tree and Public Garden Commission.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you,
And
Karen.
we have your recommendations in your written report.
So my recommendation, I guess, you know what, I didn't on this one. So my recommendation would be, in order to be consistent with what our past rulings have been, is to establish that 1 foot line of sod adjacent to the sidewalk and move the Liriape back. That would be my recommendation from staff.
Any public comments opposed or in favor? Hearing none, I assume you have no further comments and you're ready for questions?
Yes.
Members, commission questions for the applicant or staff? Susan?
Karen, is there an elevation of where the columns are in relation to the plantings?
Yeah, the columns would be installed 2 foot behind, so they would basically, there's a plan, but there's not an elevation along. There's an elevation of the column that we submitted, but there's not one in relation to the planting. But basically, the face of the hedge would also be the face of the column.
Of the
Boxwood.
Of the
Mhm.
boxwood.
Front, the street facing edge of the boxwood would be also the edge of the column.
So the Liriape would be out of the, would be,
In
In
be-
front of the column.
Yeah, actually, if you look at on the landscape plan, the Liriape stops and they were going to add annuals and planting around the columns.
Is the column 2 by 2 or is it 3 by 3?
It's actually 2.5 by 2.5.
2.5 by 2.5. Can't they just plant the boxwood and Liriape in the center of that and go down and give us a 2 width lawn in front instead of just a foot width?
Well, the boxwood's installed.
Well, they can be moved, right? Possible.
Yeah, the desire would be to have the boxwood be a continuation of the column.
Other questions?
Karen, is the boxwood going to be pruned into a hedge, like a
Mhm.
formal hedge, not
Yeah.
the individual balls?
Yeah.
Okay, so it will look like
It
it's
will be a
wall.
hedge, yes.
Okay.
It was installed a little smaller than specified, but yeah, it will be trimmed to a formal hedge.
I would just say maintaining a foot of grass is not really.
We're moving into discussion. We're still on comments.
questions.
Sorry,
Yeah, okay, so as we're looking at this design, Karen, could you again review with us what options the homeowner would be willing to consider? You'd mentioned taking out the Liriape, putting in the foot of grass strip, correct?
Well, it seems to me that there's concern on the part of the city and the commission about the width of potential mulch spilling over on the sidewalk. So we do, we're going to have a bit of a mulch strip there, so we could add more planting. Or if the city really wants the side strip, we can move the Liriape back and add what would be 12 inches, 8 to 12 inches of sod that then would have to be maintained, which is probably not the most sustainable answer. And I agree with Dave, it's not, with Mr. Wakeman, is not. Yeah.
And so if there was the foot of sod, would you then just remove the Liriape altogether
The Liriape would move closer to,
to the boxwood?
yeah.
So just as a small note for the committee to consider, in the application that we reviewed, I think it was last month, on Sherwood,
Corner of
Sure.
Sherwood and Cassidy.
corner of Sherwood and Cassidy, we did allow mulch up to the sidewalk, provided that there was ground cover adjacent that would actually keep the mulch in. And it was, kind of a low ground cover. So if that's also then something that is potentially amenable, I mean, another row of Liriape, in theory, what happens is that plant material then keeps the mulch at bay and you don't need as much of it. And so the thought is that it doesn't move into it. Or is it another smaller ground cover? But just something for the committee members to consider.
have you also talked with the homeowner about, I always call it Ryerson, which is the metal edge that you use a lot of times so that
Yeah,
keeps it in place?
we haven't discussed that. That could be a possibility. If there's concern, I think that they would keep it maintained.
Other questions? If not, we're ready for discussion. Other comments?
Including, let's see. So the columns are installed and but it was on their agenda and it's been approved and so we have to make a recommendation.
So BZAP has approved the columns.
Okay.
Subject to us approving a landscape plan.
Okay,
And so our responsibility here is to approve a landscape plan. We have no role in with respect to the columns because those are already approved.
However, I mean, I think one of the unusual circumstances is that the landscape has already been installed. We're not looking at a potential landscape. We already have an installed landscape. So the landscape is correct.
Right, right. It's installed and but it is in the right of way.
Correct.
Well, I mean, if there aren't other comments, I mean, I think we've been pretty consistent in requiring some barrier between the sidewalk and plantings. And I was the one that last month or last meeting suggested that the low sedum was an appropriate substitute for grass. And I would not have a problem with that here, but I do think there needs to be some barrier. I mean, if this picture depicts things accurately, it looks like there's at least a slight slope downward there. And I can't remember any instance where we haven't required a barrier between the plantings to make sure that the mulch is contained.
I would agree with that. I think one of the great things about tree commission members is that we have consistent attendance at most meetings. So I think we do have used that as a consideration when something is in the right of way and close to the sidewalk.
I think that if we can use some sort of a, metal barrier or something underneath that, to me, that would be better than having a foot wide strip of grass, which no matter how hard you try to, keep it green and mowed and everything else, but especially green, and that perhaps that would be a better option.
So my suggestion would we would approve this and give the property owner the choice of 3 foot wide strip, a similar strip of low sedum or similar plants that would contain the mulch, or a metal strip, and let the property owner decide what they want to do.
Are there other considerations that tree commission members would like to suggest?
I agree with Jim. I think it's nice to give 3 choices and those 3 choices would fall under our acceptable precedents that we've given. So I don't know how the homeowner would feel that he could choose.
Okay.
That involved moving the Liriape at all or not?
To me, that's where, I mean, I can't exactly tell the distance. I think the Liriape probably would have to be moved in at least the grass scenario. I don't know if you could plant something low without having to move the Liriape. The metal strip, I think obviously you wouldn't have to move the Liriape.
But I think that could be a staff consultant,
Well, if we have one.
Yeah.
I would normally send it back to the staff consultant,
Yeah.
but they might
Well,
find it.
it's not the end of June. It's not the end of June. You've
got
got 4
4
days
days.
left,
4 days for me to
Yeah.
review it and approve it.
Yeah. Can be done. Can be done.
You didn't want to sleep, right?
Are there any other questions or comments, options, discussion? Okay,
Would you like a motion?
I'd like a motion, Mr.
I
Wilson.
move that we approve the plan as presented with the modification that the property owner either install a metal strip along the sidewalk to contain the mulch, or plant a foot-wide strip of grass to contain the mulch, or plant some low-growing planting such as sedum to contain the mulch.
Is there a second?
Second,
Is there any discussion? No discussion? Okay, motion's been made and seconded that we approve the plan as presented with three options for the area in front of the boxwood. One would be a, as I said, I call it Ryerson, which would be a metal strip that's next to the sidewalk to contain the mulch. One would be a low growing ground cover. The third would be maybe an additional row of Liriope. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
I think our next application is 2691 East Main Street.
Correct. So this is TPGC 23-4. It is the new cohatch that you will see that is under construction right now on Main Street. This is an existing mid-century split level office building that is having an addition added to the north elevation along Main Street that will house the company Cohatch. The project was approved by BZAP under application number BZAP 23-8 on April 27th, with the condition that the landscape plan is subject to further review and approval by the Tree and Public Garden Commission. This project was given a certificate of appropriateness by ARB on 6/8/23. So BZAP and ARB have approved it, and now it is before the Tree Commission for us to review the landscape. Due to the site constraints and the parking lot, the opportunity for landscape exists only at the foundation of the building on the east, west, and south elevations. A larger bed is provided by the main entry at the north end of the west elevation that contains the Franz Fontaine hornbeam, a flowering hydrangea, and evergreen juniper ground cover. The east and west elevations have a simple rhythm of evergreen holly, broken up by perennials in front of the windows. The south elevation has a larger bed for the rear entrance, where there are two more Franz Fontaine hornbeams that are symmetrically placed at the rear elevation with 2 rows of lilacs and catmint that will give seasonal interest. I suggested that the last 4 hollies south of the gutters, could we pull up the plan? South of the gutters be replaced with upright evergreens, such as a blue arrow juniper. And I know that Cohatch and the landscape designers are amenable to that suggestion. I said overall, the plant selection is appropriate to the site and will provide seasonal interest. Just of note, the contractor who was building the building notified the city arborist that the trees were in the way of construction. They were told that they needed to hire a professional arborist to trim the trees if the city could not get there in a timely fashion. The contractor hacked off the limbs improperly, and the applicant was notified. And they said that they had contacted Axe Tree Service, who is a certified tree arborist, to come out the week of 6/10 to properly trim the trees, and the city was able to get there before them and properly trim the trees per their standards. So, it is to Cohatch's credit that they were notified that there was an issue with the city trees. The contractor improperly pruned them, and they immediately then were able to contact an arborist to come out, and the city was able to get there prior to the arborist, but it was helpful that they were able to do that. It's my recommendation to approve the plan as presented, with the condition potentially that they consider changing the junipers. And so with that, we have Eliza Ho, who's in the audience. So she's with the architects who are working on the building. And we have Gary Murphy and Brian Tainer here with CLMS, who are the landscape architects as well as the installers and maintenance. And Gary, it might be also helpful for you to describe what your relationship is with Cohatch, as well as address irrigation.
I'll address the irrigation first. The current plan, I do not believe has an irrigation design in it. As far as our relationship with Cohatch, we partner with Cohatch on a lot of their design build projects that they have. We have completed Westerville, Dublin. Currently, we are working with them on Powell, Bexley, think that's all of them. Yeah, currently. So basically, we will install their landscapes and then, we take on the contract to maintain them afterwards. So we partner with them from beginning to end.
So is there a watering plan that is associated if the project is not irrigated? How do you ensure the survival of the plant material?
We do a per occurrence watering plan with Cohatch. So, if we get into a situation where, it hasn't rained or it's dry, we arrive to the site with our watering truck and water the plants by hand.
And do you do how do you do bi-monthly, weekly maintenance, or is it once a month?
Weekly maintenance, if there's turf involved, it's a weekly maintenance program. 28 occurrences, your typical mulching, spring cleanup, fall cleanup, seasonal color changes. If there is no turf, then it's a detail program where it's usually a bi-weekly visit for weeding and detail.
So it might be helpful. I know that the plan was a little bit difficult to understand. It might be helpful if you could just kind of go from the top of the page down and kind of call out what the plant material is in case, just so people have a better understanding.
Just to make sure we're following
Oh,
our
okay.
procedure, or I think we just need to turn it over to the applicant and have them
Perfect.
present. So you have up to 10 minutes.
Okay, well, we'll go right down. We'll start in the upper left-hand corner. Yeah, you're oriented the right way. Basically in that corner, the blue symbol is a peewee oak leaf hydrangea. 4 foot tall, 3 foot wide at maximum. You're gonna get a white flower in the summer. It's a rounded form. The next symbol next to that is repeated. That one and the two in the front is the European hornbeam. It's columnar in shape. You're looking at something that's about 30 feet, 35 feet tall at its maturity. It'll stay about 20 feet wide. It's a slow growing tree, yellow fall color. As we work that ground cover, in this particular case, we've got what's referred to as a shore juniper. It's about 1 foot tall, maybe 6 foot wide. It should fill in that whole area as a ground cover. Working down the building, down the sides. We've started to get away from boxwoods a little bit because everybody knows what's happening with the boxwoods. So this is a Ilex crenata. It's a small leaf holly, kind of resembles that of a boxwood. It's going to be about 3 foot by 3 foot, easy to maintain. As you're working down, the blue symbols along the back is a Carl Forster feather reed grass, which is going to get you about 3 foot tall and act as a backdrop. And then the two types of perennials that alternate in there, the first ones that are the pink is a sage, purple flower in the summer. And then the next group is a white cone flower. So it would alternate purple, white, purple. Finishes out with the Ilex crenata down the side, which the last 4 we will substitute into an upright blue type of juniper. As you come around the front of the building, the back row is a Miss Kim lilac. Will max out or mature out at about 5 foot tall. Very fragrant spring flower. Then you've got a couple rows of Nepeta or catmint, which is going to be flowering pretty much this time of year throughout the summer. It's a low grow. It'll stay it as a ground cover. And then as you swing around the building up the other side, it basically repeats the opposite side.
Any further? Just making sure.
I can answer questions. I got nothing else.
All right, well, first we'll see if there's, and I think the answer is obvious, but is there anyone from the public that wants to offer comments in opposition to the proposed application? Anyone that wants to offer support for the application? See anyone? So I think we are ready for questions. Actually, I could ask a couple questions first, and I think these sort of go to Mark, so that Mark can earn his keep here today. So is this within the Main Street guidelines area? So our review is occurring within the Main Street design guidelines, is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Right.
Okay. And so I guess, Ellen, I mean, when you reviewed the application, do you comply with the Main Street design guidelines?
Given the footprint in terms of the beds that we had, yes, I mean, it was in terms of the limited plant material that we were able to get adjacent to the building. Yes.
But like things like, I mean, my understanding, and I'm working from memory here, but we have talked about the Main Street guidelines a lot over the last year. Like there's either brick or granite curbing around the street trees. Is that part of the plan?
So as part of this is since they are not touching anything within the existing street trees, that is not something that I'm aware of that we were going to ask them to modify that. I know that those trees right now are just sitting within, I think, a lawn strip.
I mean, but I didn't read the guidelines as
Mhm.
having an exception for that, but I would defer to others on what they require. I don't know, Mayor, if you have any views, or Mark. Sorry. My question is just, since this is within the Main Street guidelines, and we spent lots of time with them in the fall, my recollection was that the street trees, if we're supposed to have a granite curb around them, and it may be that I'm just remembering the guidelines, but that's what I recalled from the.
Yeah, I think it's limestone curb.
Okay.
Because I think that's in the case of when the tree well is being created. I'm sorry, does the scope include doing anything in the tree zone of the right of way? Okay,
No.
I don't know that in the past we have asked for a change to the tree lawn on a remodel project. Unless I'm mistaken. I don't know if you have a recollection.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
And it is-
Doesn't mean it's something we shouldn't
Sure.
address, right?
I actually think the Main Street Design Guidelines called for, whether or not they called for limestone curbs, it called for, what are those called?
Fencing.
The little tree thingy doos,
Yeah.
fencing?
Guards.
Guards,
Yeah.
which we've sort of walked away from a little bit as well. Our code said granite.
Mhm.
It was an error. It was actually recently changed in ordinance 424, where, in the review of the overall code, we realized that somebody put granite in there and we changed it back to limestone.
Other questions?
No, my concern was the irrigation, because I know that there's a lot of asphalt over there. So I just wanted to clarify though, those beds that you're putting on the east and west sides, how deep will they be?
The beds on as far as
The
what we
planting?
what we would call, bring soil in from not site soil. The root zone there, you're probably only looking about, well, that's the width.
Oh.
Depth wise,
Yeah.
depth wise, we're probably looking at 12 inches or under.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah,
Oh, wow. That's narrow.
yeah. It's not, it's, the root ball is not going to be very deep on that size of shrub or perennial. Most of the perennials that go in there will be a 1 gallon perennial, which is going to be about a 6-inch root zone. So the Ilex crenata would probably be either like a 5 gallon or what I would call like a 24 to 36 root ball, which you're still only looking at about 12-inch depth.
So have you had experience doing this at your other co-hatches and had success, or?
As far as not having an irrigation system.
Well, not having the irrigation or not having any really bed in which to plant. I mean, you're only talking a foot?
No, I'm talking about what we call imported soils.
Right. No,
So,
I
yeah,
understand,
Yeah, no.
but it works is what I'm
Yes.
basically
Yes,
asking.
yeah.
You've seen,
Actually, sometimes,
right.
yes,
But
it-
with the heat from the asphalt and the heat from the building, it seems like
Yeah.
it's got to be a difficult place to plant.
everywhere in Ohio is a difficult place to plant. There's a lot of clay.
Yeah.
But you want to use some imported soils, but you don't want to make the whole thing an imported soil because then you got imported soils that drain very well and then hit impervious soil and that thing's gonna, it'll fill up. So we want the plant material to be able to survive in the native soil that's there. So
Yeah.
it will help it a little bit, but you don't want to totally replace it.
Well, again, I was just really more concerned about all the heat,
Yeah.
especially with summers like we have.
No.
Other questions? Susan?
Is there tree protection around the city trees now?
Honestly, I don't know because we haven't been involved until the site's ready to be landscaped.
Okay, so I'm assuming, Grant, there should be tree protection around the trees.
Yeah, it should be part of the building permit.
So if the building permit has been let, correct, Mayor?
It has.
Okay.
They've been building, so if there is not tree protection, we should have tree protection.
So I know it kind of sounds like a snotty question, but are you maintaining the property now as far as the tree lawn?
No,
Okay, so do you know who is maintaining it?
no, I don't.
Okay.
No,
Well, I would just, I would
but I
just,
can find out.
okay, well, can you find out and do something about it?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right, that's good. I wanted to ask if there are wheel stops in the parking lot with only a 12-inch bed?
So I want to clarify, I think from the wall to the edge of the sidewalk, that looks more like it's a 3-foot deep bed, right? And the east and the west sides, it looks like from edge of pavement to building is 3 feet.
Yes.
3 feet. On the west side is 2.6.
2.6, okay. Okay,
see that.
so it's not, so when they were talking about 1 foot, that was digging down
That's
1 feet for soil and putting in amended soil to kind of help establish the plants that is then on top of the native soil, which is a pretty common practice in both residential and commercial install. So I just want to clarify that it's not, these aren't plants that are being squeezed into a very narrow bed. It's a 3 foot and a 2.5 foot bed. Okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
But you have wheel stops everywhere. Correct. Okay, okay. I guess my other comment would be, you be agreeable to Elena's suggestion of junipers for a little relief in the
Yes.
height of the building?
We've already discussed that, yes.
Okay, and how many would you be willing to put in?
4 on each side, because if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, we'd go four back and then 4 back, so on each side. You don't have that plan that we have one with a red square around it. I don't know if you guys had seen that one or not. But yeah, those 4 would be replaced with an upright juniper and the first 4 on the other side.
And those are approximately what happens is that there's a gutter from the roof that comes down right at that location. So it's nice stop in terms of the elevation to Manhattan. And there are blue arrows and blue point junipers that will stay 2 to 3 feet diameter and get to be 10, 12 feet tall. And so it'll just provide a little bit more height.
Right. I mean, I think it's a great idea. Personally, I would like to see the building, kind of broken up with more of those stands as you get closer to the alley, instead of all just sort of, I think most of the plant material on the sides is like 3 feet high or 4 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the perennial pockets where some plant material get up about 4 foot.
Other questions?
Yeah, when you talked about how you're going to water, it's going to be just weather dependent, or is it on an actual plan cycle that you're there every week or something?
After it's first installed, it's more of on a plan 2-3 times a week.
Okay.
After the plants become established, then it becomes weather dependent.
And how long are you going to be irrigating for just this season, just next year? I mean, is it whose responsibility beyond?
Well, that would be Cohatch's responsibility is to say, yes, let's continue it or we're established. So
Is there any way that if any of the plants are died for replacement at some point?
everything's covered under at a minimum 1-year warranty.
Okay,
And most of the time when we take on a maintenance contract from an install, we will warranty the plants for as long as we are contracted to maintain it.
Do you know approximately when you're going to do your install?
They have not given us a start date for the install as of today.
So just for information, when we were reviewing the landscape for Catalina's, and they had some trees they're going to put in the right of way, we suggested that a fall planting might be better because they also don't have an irrigation system. So while we love to see everything perfect for the ribbon cutting, there's also the sense that, you know, timing is everything with plant material in this kind of weather.
Any other questions? I think we're ready for discussion. Are there
Mhm.
comments by members of the commission? If there aren't any, I would just support Susan's suggestion that we perhaps condition this on a fall planting absent conditions being impossible to do so. I will say I was a little disturbed that this plan was approved by BZAP in April of 2023, and the application to us is only coming more than a year later when an application to us was a condition of BZAP's approval. So I think it would be beneficial to everyone to, if the plants can be sustained by being planted this fall, that we do that, so that we're not waiting till next spring for the plantings. Any
Is this a-
other comments or reactions to my comment? If not, I'll be happy to make a motion.
Okay. Is
Well,
that-
I just was curious, how does that happen? That we weren't notified until this point in time?
Well, I'd be speculating on how that happened. I think it's a conversation that we can have within the city about whether there are ways to create a schedule for applicants to know that they have to come before us more promptly. If that's what BZAP desires for them to do, we could probably have that conversation.
I
with the
see.
city.
Okay.
And I think it's a conversation that after the applicants leave today, we can have with Mark right here. Because I also think this, you know, our first applicant also, that approval process left some residue that we have to deal with after something's already approved. So I think it's a good conversation to have, you know, so Jim, why don't you
So-
go ahead and make your motion?
I would move to approve the application with the modification of replacing I'm forgetting what species we're replacing with the junipers, but hopefully our excellent staff consultant will fill in the blanks. But with the replacement of the existing plan with the 8 junipers, and if feasible for the plants to be viable, that the planting occur this fall.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? A motion is made to approve the plan as presented with the substitution of 8 junipers for the other plant material, with the possibility of having the install this fall to keep the plants viable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, thanks,
Thank
Gary, for coming. Liza, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So Mark, can we just switch to you for a couple of these things then? Okay. So on the first application, BZAP approved the pillars in the right of way, which is their right to approve. However, then we're sort of left with the impossible situation of having plants planted in the right of way without a landscape plan that we then have to deal with, and then the pillars get installed and they're approved. And so we have a installed landscape plan not approved. We have right-of-way pillars that have been approved, and then here we are.
Well, I'm going to probably defer to the mayor in terms of timing, but it's a legitimate concern. I mean, absolutely. Because if, you know, again, as has been mentioned more than once, the columns are within the purview of BZAP, but if BZAP wants this commission to weigh in as a condition of those columns being put in, then there needs to be more coordination in order to allow you folks to approve the landscape plan before those columns are put in, if at all possible. Now, understand, and again, this is not somebody anyone wants to do, but understand if for some reason that the landscape, well, for whatever reason, it was delayed to get to you. If those pillars, if the landscape plan is not approved, those pillars come out. Now, again, I'm not advocating that. Nobody wants to go there, but you / BZAP / the city has the authority to say, hey, you kind of jumped the gun here. You should not have put those pillars in until the commission conducted its review. This commission conducted its review because that's what BZAP said was one of the conditions of approving the pillar. Again, I don't know why it took as long as it did to get here. I do know that in the middle of this, there was also the hold harmless agreement that was before city council. That shouldn't be a reason for it to delay to come to you folks, but was part of the 394 plan as well, or issue as well. And I don't know
I mean, that's my impression of the 394 is that it was a fairly new thing, and folks were figuring out how the process should work. And I think we can learn from this and improving the process. For me, I'm more concerned about applicants, and I'm not painting this applicant in a bad
no, I
light,
understand.
but I do think we could have a conversation with the leadership of BZAP to perhaps tweak some of their language when they do refer things for us, so the applicant knows it's not, oh, we'll finish this project and then we'll come with a landscape plan.
Right. And again, the way I agree with you completely, Jim, because, you know, again, BZAP has the authority and frankly, I think the responsibility when appropriate to defer to your expertise and your input. And if in whatever that was, April of 2023, we should not be sitting here talking about this in June of 2024. Again, I don't know the specifics in this situation, why that happened, but you're right. I think it's a learning experience and an opportunity to try to make it a little tighter.
So, you know, we're all about trying to find solutions to problems. And so what would you think of the idea of like 2 members of Tree Commission and 2 members of BZAP getting together and talking about language and timing?
Please. So if I can interject real quickly. 'Cause I
Okay,
think I need
Mayor,
to-
especially because you got me another sparkling water.
I need to
really
add some
appreciate it.
flavor to this conversation.
Okay.
Every application is different. Every fact pattern is a little bit different, right? 140 and in fact, you are correct that there was a interpretation of our code that left out the council, we just talked about this today, left out the council approval of the consent and hold harmless. It's kind of added after the fact to both of these applications, which added to some confusion. But we have 2 different circumstances. 141 South Drexel. The columns went in place prior to your ability to look at the plan and the final approval of the plan. That contractor was summoned to mayor's court. So we took action against that contractor because of the way that all fell out. My understanding is this is different, and I could be wrong about the fact pattern. My understanding is that the landscaping was installed here before the BZAP hearing for the boxwoods and the Loriapi. So-
My question's been there for several years, is maybe.
Well, I don't know how long it's been, but
At 394?
Yeah.
No, so the original plan did not have any landscape along the sidewalk when it came as a new build. And then they hired MKSK to then kind of revamp the front and zhuzh it up a little bit. And then that's when they added that boxwood hedge along the sidewalk as well as the columns. And then they realized, okay, they're in the right of way and there was a hold then on the project. And then it came before in terms of BZAP and Tree Commission.
so there's nothing to stop the property owner from planting the boxwoods and Loriapi at their own time. They did that before the BZAP hearing. Then BZAP comes in and they say, hey, we want you guys to review the landscape plan. I'm not sure whether or not BZAP realized the landscape plan had already been installed, but they then wanted you to review it. So now you're put in a difficult position because you have pre-existing landscaping prior to the BZAP decision. And you have to decide whether or not you're okay with that. And you do have the authority, I believe, under that BZAP decision to say, tear it out or move it or whatever. They could have moved the boxwood, you know, in the right time of year. But because of this particular instance, they weren't wrong in having installed boxwood because they didn't know that BZAP was going to condition the column on a landscape plan. You are allowed to put boxwood in that area of your lawn.
Are they? I thought that was right away.
It's right of way. But we don't have any law that says you can't plant in the right of way between the sidewalk and the house. I mean, you walk up and down any street, it's everywhere. So obviously we're not telling people to tear that out all the time.
Well, I need to research that a little bit more, but
Yeah, the city has purview over it. We can at any time come in and say, we're putting a speed sign here. We're changing where the sidewalk is. We're expanding our street. We want to put a street tree in here. You know, we can do that, but we don't have a law that says you as a resident can't plant in this area. Which is, of course, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say it sucks. It's just notoriously happening left and right. And if it were illegal, we would have to stop it left and right.
But if I'm the homeowner and I hire somebody to do a landscape plan, whose responsibility is it to define where the right of way is?
If you're
If I'm
installing a
the
landscape.
homeowner, I probably don't even know what right of way means.
Ultimately you as the homeowner are responsible for what happens on your property.
I-
But you hire somebody under the understanding that they will seek the permits and approvals necessary for the project. Of course, like we have a lot of contractors that come in and they might not be savvy enough to understand that the right of way extends behind the sidewalk towards the property. And so there's an educational piece. And we have to determine if that contractor acted in good faith or not. The instance of Drexel, we had a contractor that was well experienced with our
Mhm.
properties in the city and should have known better, and we knew that. And that's why we took legal action against that contractor. This is a totally different fact pattern on South Columbia, and there will be future fact patterns that are different. I just think that, so ultimately, to answer your question, the property owner is responsible. As their agent, the applicant, the contractor is responsible. And then it's our role, I think, to try to ferry those applications through the correct processes and things can get a little confusing between private property, a slice of city right of way between the sidewalk and that private property, which also is actually private property. It's just right of way is like an easement over it. And then the tree lawn itself.
I guess I still
Yeah.
question how the owner is made aware of something that he not even know exists. I guess that's what I'm saying.
All you have to do is go to the auditor's website and you can see.
I know, but I mean, okay, but if you don't even know about a right of way, why would you even go someplace to look for it?
Well, in this instance, the one you just heard,
Yes.
that column is covered by our zoning code. I mean,
yes,
how do you know the
I
zoning
understand
code?
that.
You call staff or you read it. It's a fun read. I think like that is part of the process of education of finding out what's allowed and what's not.
But I think, your question kind of implies an answer that I think is a legitimate answer. A lot of people don't know.
You're right.
And a lot of people that is one of the reasons, maybe not the only reason, but one of the reasons why there are plantings all over the city in that area of the right of way. And ultimately, because the city can do this, again, as the mayor said, the city, if there's a legitimate reason for the city to go in and remove something that's in the right of way, they can.
Right.
It doesn't happen often though. So, but you're right. If the city had a rule or regulation that says you can't plant it in the right of way unless you do X, Y, and Z, then a lot of people probably would still be planting in the right of way and not knowing they are.
Mhm.
Well, go ahead, Jim.
Can I just, going back to the original question, can I just suggest that maybe a conversation with a couple folks from BZAP and maybe our new building director when he gets his feet wet, to see if we can improve our processes would be good for everyone. And we'll talk about improving the language. We can also talk about improving communication around how people know what they can and can't do in the city.
So one thing that I just jump in that I think sometimes what might happen, and this is, it is a communication both in terms of with the applicant as well as internal staff, is I think that what happens is that BZAP might say, okay, this has to go to tree commission. And BZAP and staff is assuming that that person is then saying, okay, me as the applicant, I then need to go to tree commission, right? The applicant is thinking, oh, okay, well, you, city, are going to go to tree commission. And no one is then coming to tree commission. The applicant isn't reaching out to us and saying, hey, this happened. And now I need to go to you, because they might not be all type A and want to follow rules, right? And they're like, okay, well, this just happens. And then the city then, I mean, and we have been trying then to meet and say, hey, these are the projects that are coming along. But I think that occasionally this one fell through the cracks, right? And it wasn't,
Fun.
right?
Yeah.
So Cohatch fell through the cracks, right? It wasn't until it was under construction and Grant was notified that, hey, these trees are going up, and we're like, well, you're doing a landscape plan, we haven't seen it, and it's a commercial building, we need to see it, right? So I think that was something that there needs to be a process where it is either on the onus of the applicant, you need to then do this application, and it needs to be made crystal clear, that is your responsibility, or it needs to be that somehow it gets flagged and that there's some magical button that we push and it happens and it goes then to tree commission.
And
Kessler.
to add to that, as I've shared with you guys, we're well aware that there's breaking down happening on a regular basis. And we're frustrated about it as well. We have had internal meetings to try to cure that. Hasn't worked so far, some of it. One of the changes to the replacement for Kathy's position attends BZAP and ARB currently, but not tree commission. So because you guys love having staff here, our future zoning and planning director will attend, just like we are having legal, the applications portion of the meeting, which we moved to the front portion of the Tree Public Gardens Commission meeting. So you will also then get like a routine update and at least that continuity of touch between a decision that's been rendered. Now it has to go to the tree commission. I believe that we will be able to fix this process with more intentionality. And we're aware of it. So I mean, I think let's to your point, let's get our
Get together.
feet wet. Let's get together. Let's see how it's working. That'll be starting in August.
Okay, good. Okay, so any other questions from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say, Ben, did you say that, as far as right away, I know we've had people who have had put stuff in the tree lawn.
Yeah.
We had them take it out because it's, planting your garden in there is just not allowed. But the right of way, if it extends behind the sidewalk, people can put that on their property
Yes.
versus
So
tree lawn.
the tree lawn is governed, well, to further confuse matters, there are two sections of our code where we define tree lawn. One of them is in chapter 1200 some point, one's in chapter 1000 some point. Right. In one of our definitions, tree lawn includes everything from the entire right of way of the street. And that section doesn't talk about the limitation in terms of only planting flowers around street trees and all that. That's in the second section that talks about tree line, which defines it between the sidewalk and the curb. And in that section, we say you have to maintain it as grass, and you can place a ring of mulch 3 feet out of a tree base, and you can plant flowers no higher than 18 inches in height, 3 feet out of the tree base. That governs very distinctly what happens within that tree lawn, sidewalk to curb. The other section says that the city has complete purview over the tree lawn, the street, which includes that area between the sidewalk and the house. It says that the tree commission I think I'm going to butcher this and Jim will correct me, but has purview over the removal of trees in that area. But the city has purview over the plantings, and we have not ever, the city, administration of the city has never set standards to say you can or cannot plant in that space. We have allowed openly and notoriously, for as long as I'm aware of in the history of the city, plantings to occur in that area behind the sidewalk. And I believe that if you polled our residents, the vast majority would believe that that is their property. Now, whether or not it is or isn't, our code is silent on whether or not people can plant in that area. And so therefore it is allowed.
So, as my vice chair points out, we've got a lot to do.
We
And
can
that-
talk about this all day long.
Yeah,
I'm happy to talk about it all day long, but we do have,
differing opinions.
well, we probably have an action that we want to take given what's happening next door as soon as possible.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let us go on to C, which is revisions to motion of November 15th, 2023. Mr. Wilson, back to you.
If I may give a word of explanation. for the
Yes,
motion.
please, please.
So everyone remembers that we spent a fair amount of time on 2200 East Main last year. You remember that we took two different actions. Remember, we had at our regular meeting in November, we were dealing with the curb cut over there. And then at a subsequent, I think, special meeting a couple weeks later, we made recommendations to BZAP. If you remember clearly that far back, at the time, what was presented to us was that Continental was going to be responsible for this pocket park here, even though it was going to be on city/CIC property. Well, as the city's conversation, the mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, but as the city's conversation with the developer has proceeded, the city's decided that actually wants to manage the plan for the pocket park. And our previous action was just based on the assumption that the contractor, the developer was doing it. So in order to set the record straight, to clear the way for them to do all the work that they want to do, with the understanding that the city and the CIC are working on a plan, and it'll come to us in July because we're not meeting then, but sometime in the future, I would make the following motion. In light of,
It's
and
right
it's
up.
right up there, in light of the fact that the scope of the agreement between the CIC for the city of Bexley and the applicant for 2200 East Main has changed since our action of November 15th, 2023. And that under the current anticipated agreement, the city and the CIC will retain control over the design of the pocket park adjacent to the development, which will include review of the design by the Tree and Public Garden Commission. The Tree and Public Garden Commission hereby removes the conditions contained in its November 15th action upon the curb cut through the right of way for the access road on the west side of the development.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Then there'll be discussion. You'll second, okay. All right, so Mr. Wilson, if you go back,
Mhm.
because we'd like to know when the tree commission first conjured up this the motion, it was for some valid reasons.
Mhm.
And so do you want to talk about what those reasons were that we were focused and concerned about the pocket park?
Well, I think we were concerned about the pocket park for many reasons, obviously consistent with our vision of beauty throughout Bexley. We wanted to make sure it was a beautiful pocket park, but we also, at least the way I envisioned it, was a trade.
Right.
That we were trading that little area, which is currently has a curb cut through which people can exit the parking lot. That was going to be removed, and the trade was that a new curb cut would be created for the road on the west side of the development. And so we wanted, because of conceiving of it as a trade, we wanted to, I guess, to maybe oversimplify it, condition the trade so that we, with the developer, would assure ourselves that we were happy with the pocket park design. Since now the city is taken a different approach and is actually going to control the design of the pocket park, that concern, at least in my mind, has been mitigated, and we'll still review it the way we would normally, the way we reviewed this parking lot design, however many years ago that was, but that sort of trade aspect has disappeared.
Okay, so other questions for Jim, Mayor, Mark, anybody?
Question, so in getting rid of the exit out of the guard, does that then eliminate parking spaces here how does that change?
We'll consider that in the course of the plan. What I've heard consistently, but we don't have a final plan, is that they're going to maintain the same number of parking spaces, but that's sort of a premature question. Once we have the plan, we'll figure it out.
I can answer that question in generally, I think. So the loss of that right-hand turn lane was actually triggered by us for two reasons. One, that's fundamentally just an unsafe turn because of how narrow the visibility is in that area. And when we have more pressure on this light, we need better stacking leading up to the light. And so there will be loss of parking spaces because we're putting a pocket park there, right next to where there are some parking spaces. But those are necessary in order to allow the deeper stacking on the light, because otherwise you would have people trying to come in and out of parking spaces where they need to stack up at the light. So the loss of spaces is due to that, the addition of that additional green space, loss of the right-hand turn and additional stacking, and then also the 2 access points to the garage, in exchange for which we're going to have cross parking with the 300 car parking facility right next door. So we're very comfortable that for the loss of, how many spaces is it? 16 spaces. We'll have access to the 300. It is notably the first project I'm aware of on Main Street in a very long time that has actually met our parking requirements. It didn't have a parking variance. Almost every project has a parking variance. This one included in Giant Eagle had parking variances. It is a well-parked facility. So this cross parking is going to be incredibly advantageous to this property. And to them. I mean, we're excited about what that's going to do in terms of the times when we have our peak parking, AKA when Orange Theory is in session. So, yeah, it is always Orange Theory.
So do we have a timeline for that?
For which part?
For the pocket park design?
And I'd say in the coming 3 to 4 months. I think we're internally working on design. The parking / access easement needs to be completed before we then move into the design phase. So we make sure that the correct agreements are in place. And that's in the next month or 2.
So does that mean that 2200 comes back to us again with any changes or?
So those aren't changes to 2200. It's a new application to change this parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I believe they're going to continue to tweak their landscape design based upon the end use. So I think that will come back to you.
Okay.
So, and what they had told us at the last time that they were here, that if there is significant changes to the planting plan, that they need to come back.
Mhm.
I have requested of Jason Hockstock formal letters that actually describe whether or not permeable pavers are allowed or not. I said that was part of one of our conditions of approval. And so he has spoken with them and he said that he's going to get those to me. They have talked not only with the city of Columbus, but also with David Koch, who is the city engineers. And so he's in the process of getting that additional information. There were a number of things that were kind of listed together. And so we're in the process of following up to formally request those.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Motion is made and seconded that we approved the new wording for a revision to our motion on November 15th, 2023. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Jim, for drafting. So I'm not going to say that concludes our legal business for today, Mark, because, we always try to color inside the margins, but you never know. You never know.
Right. For instance, Mark could maybe think about a release for the golf cart tour so that the city doesn't face liability for that.
Oh, that's easy. We'll
That's
just cut
easy.
and paste some release.
Madam Chair, I do need to leave in 10 minutes.
I know. So are
Be clear
you
about that.
comfortable going ahead with your report or do
I
you
was-
need a little more rehearsal time?
I'm super comfortable. I've had plenty of time to make some notes.
Okay, well, let's go to number 4C then, staff report.
Okay,
I don't
thank you.
know. Are you considered staff or you're the mayor?
I'm chief staff. Design process for unification of Columbia. We are putting together an internal team to discuss what that center portion of Commonwealth Park will look like when Columbia is removed between Commonwealth North and South. I've asked if there might be a tree commission member involved. You had suggested Dave.
Wakeman? Yes.
Wakeman?
Yes, because now he's
They're just not
unencumbered.
letting go of you. Since you can provide insight and you don't have any conflict in the vote when it gets taken for approval. I'm not sure if anyone's talked to you about that yet. Maybe I was supposed to. So that's my bad.
No, I've already talked to Dave.
Oh, okay. You look like a deer in the headlights.
I
Fine.
I don't think he knew where
Thank you,
you were
Mark.
going, so.
That's where I was going with it.
Hardly knew.
We're gonna bring Brian Ken Jones in to talk about it. Haven't determined exactly who's part of our internal team. But we're gonna, work through different concepts. We have a treasure trove of historical concepts from, our last planning effort and then 2018. So we'll have some starting points. But hoping to come up with some concepts to bring back for some informal review prior to maybe workshopping, with the public. Although we haven't finalized what that looks like. We did do a survey for design prioritization. Grant, if you go to the agenda folder, you'll see a folder called Mayor's Update. If you click on that, right up there you go. And then the Tree Commission survey. The results are in your agenda packet. The takeaway, if you look through this, is that the North Roosevelt Meetings Landscape Refresh received the highest, I think, number of medium and high priority votes. Although College and Livingston had a highest priority, second only to the DGB Kindness Park chess tables. Good news. We have fabricated a chess table out there, so it's getting ready. Although we need a plan do we need a plan, or just we're putting a chess table out?
We need a plan.
We need a plan, okay? That's
We
what
have
I
a
thought.
designer. Has
And
4 days left.
So, and then some Nelson and Clifton Gateway refresh higher on the medium priority, within 2 years. Del Mar landscape looks like more of a medium, and then
So those were the top 5.
yeah,
So I had gone through this. and
sorry,
kind of
Ellen has really thought through it more than I have.
So I went through this, I looked at the top 5. It was really all across the board, interestingly. I mean, everyone had different priorities,
Some
not,
good narrative at
not
the end too.
surprisingly.
You've been to one of our meetings.
Right? I know, shocking. So it really, Kindness Park had the most, and then really the Gateway refresh were kind of like neck and neck in terms of doing something at College and Livingston as well as Nelson and Clifton. Then the Del Mar landscape had a lot of mediums and a couple highs, as well as the Roosevelt medians. So it was interesting that some of the other ones were just kind of sprinkled through, but those in terms of when you look at high and medium as well as the most numbers, those were kind of the top 5 out of the 8 or 10 or so projects that we were looking at.
Good. So would you be able to send us those results?
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, so what I'll do is within those results is I'll print that out. Dave was able to email me his results, and so I kind of added it to a chart. It wasn't. Okay.
Oh, so this is the fake one
This is the
without
fake one,
Dave.
right? So
This is where Dave's like going off the
we had 6
in an individual.
we had 6 responses online and then 7 through email. So
It's very good.
yeah.
There you go.
Say that's 100%.
Cassidy project,
Yeah.
the right-of-way acquisition is complete through the city of Columbus. They are hoping to have this bid by the end of August. Notice to commence, they're hoping by November, and they think construction will start on that in early 2025.
2025.
So that's where things stand with their project. Allen Creek Bridge, we had an internal meeting today about that pedestrian bike bridge at Schneider Park, which continues to go through the most maddening bureaucratic process I've ever witnessed. But good news is it seems to be moving along. We will need to remove some trees in the area of the bridge in order to accommodate the cranes come in, and there's like a swivel motion that happens to drop the bridge in place. So we will be talking to you guys about a removal and a replanting plan and a erosion additional control plan for the creek bank. We will also get the pleasure of presenting a similar plan to the city of Columbus for their side. It shall be interesting, which ties into the next topic. Grant knows I have been sort of internally griping and fomenting about the egg for a while. So the egg, which is, does anyone know what I'm talking about with the egg? Everybody
I-70
knows?
exit.
It's the I-70 exit. It's called the egg because from the sky it looks like an egg, I guess. It's also known by my children as the home of Bob and Sheila, which is what they've named the groundhogs. Sorry, Sheila. That's nothing to do with you. It's just their groundhog names.
Bob and Sheila,
Those, yes, the groundhogs.
like,
Bob.
like, yeah.
Whatever. So I feel like I know we've had a past plan. I know that it has not lived up to its, its aspirations for the plan. I would love to see a new plan for the egg. And I'm hoping that when Columbus requires the planting of additional trees as part of the removal on their side of the creek, we can we can sort of create a plan for the egg and ask that that be considered as the additive plantings perhaps. Or not, whatever. That's my way of saying it. It's on my radar. So if I had a list of priorities, it would be medium priority for that.
Are we allowed to sneak in there and cut down those ailanthus that are growing?
Yeah. You can always cut down invasives.
With Bob and Sheila.
Yeah, well, Bob and
Um,
Sheila's brother is in the South Garden.
The-
So popular.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know we had that. New members, were appointed last night. So starting on July 1st, our new members, and I'm sure that Susan has these memorized, but I'm pulling them up because I don't. Jim Wilson was reappointed, so congratulations, Jim. Luke McClellan will be joining us. Audra Young and Charlie Flower as alternates. I should say Dr. Charlie Flower is alternates. So those were all confirmed by council last night. I provided Susan and Jim with a draft of it's very sad, landscape review consultant, RFP. Elena, as
Happy to share that with anybody.
Elena has said in the past, she would love to focus her efforts entirely on design, and who blames her? It's the artistic wing of your professional practice. And so wish you great luck, and we're going to continue working with you on that. But we also have a lot of Elena projects coming, designs coming down the pipeline pretty quickly. So it'll be good to have somebody reviewing them who's not her, so that she's not conflicted as she tells you how wonderful her plans are. We want somebody with a really critical, in fact, in the RFP, it's like you need to be very critical of Elena Andrews' designs. So that's happening. I want to acknowledge that it is not fun. I'm not saying this right. It was very sad to see the trees being removed next door at the 2200 East site. And we had to sit here in our office all day and look at it through the windows. So, radical equipment being used. It was kind of amazing, but really sad to see that happen. I hate to see trees removed. I hate to see mature trees removed. I know that site very well, and I know that it could not be developed without the removal of trees to the economic benefit of the city. And I know that there are lots of new trees going in place, and I know that in time they will grow and they will be mature and sequestering carbon and providing shade and doing all the great things that trees do. And I have great faith in this board to continue to encourage and foster additional trees throughout the city. And so I want to acknowledge the sadness with which I feel on seeing those trees go. The one shade spot I had was if I was charging my car at that spot right over there underneath that. Was it a hawthorn? Elm, sorry. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And I also want to express my deep condolences, Susan, in the loss of your son. We've all been thinking about you and
It's tough.
caring for you. I can't even imagine. And I know that a tree will be planted in his honor on behalf of the city of Bexley. And so we'll talk with you
We love
about
that.
how we can accommodate
You
that.
love beauty.
Yeah, that was very clear. It was a beautiful obituary.
Oh, thank you.
So that is my report.
All right.
And I hate to leave, but I must. So,
Okay. All right. Well,
sorry.
we appreciate you being here. Enjoyed having Mark here. Lots of good conversations to continue. I wasn't, as you know, able to attend the gathering at Capitol on Friday, but I have heard that, and there's Miss Audra. Welcome as an alternate to the Bexley Tree and Public Gardens Commission. Yeah. So Mayor, I did have some feedback that perhaps it would be good for the city to consider an annual kind of learning session for new commission members on what's expected of them, what they can do, what they can say, where they can go.
Yeah.
And then how the city would like to help with that, because I did hear back that Attorney Fischel had said you can't go visit a site unless you all go together. So if that's going to be the case, then I'd like the city to arrange us the time before tree commission member that we all go together.
He's going to provide some clear guidance.
Okay. Okay. Okay,
Sunshine law, ethics, and then specific to training relative to the section.
I never-
You get on board
I think, who wouldn't want to come?
you have to say it's pictures that there, but I did make sure.
Thank you.
And also, I think we would like to do some annual sort of refreshers.
I agree. Right. It's kind of like a personnel review. Okay. Okay. So all right, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go back to announcements of small victories. Mary McMahon hosted international visitors. So I think I think there should be a photo there.
It was really fun.
It was really fun. She
It
was all
was
pumped up
really
about
fun.
this.
I had to take a picture of my notes here, so I get it right. So this symposium brought together a national and international audience of academic, nonprofit, government, and research-oriented professionals to share and gain knowledge on how we can build coalitions to adapt to the changing world and how urban food systems contribute to these solutions. So this event was hosted by Ohio State. Tours included several urban gardens, including our beautiful South Community Garden. And it was such a great opportunity to share that garden with these folks. And
Natalie said it was posted yesterday, or you sent them.
I didn't see it when I checked the
Did
files
you?
before I came, so.
I sent it. I think I sent it
Okay.
Sunday, but anyway, regardless, I was part of the tour and I got to go, and well, of course, the minute we pulled into Bexley, I said, oh, by the way, we're in Arboretum. And it was fun, but we were on a Ohio State bus, one of those like luxury coaches that they've got that they haul people around in. It was fun. But it was a very inquisitive group. They truly were blown away by the garden and they loved the design. And they just were so amazed at how beautiful the gardens looked and how it was that sense of community spirit down there. And it was fun because there were two entomologists there. So they started looking at plants and they were like, oh, did you know you have thrips on your garlic? I'm like, what? So, but it was really fun. So, and it was, like I said, great exposure for the city. So very impressed.
National, international.
National,
What more could you ask for?
Exactly.
Right? Okay,
Inspiring them to go back to their own communities.
good. And then do you want to go on and just talk about what's new for the bloomers? in
Oh,
2024?
okay. So the bloomers are alive and well and very busy. We put in over 300 hours so far since May 2nd kickoff, which is wonderful. We've had some great celebrity bloomers. Again, we've had our realtors group, thanks to Sheila, and Roger Carroll and Ann Brennan came last week and helped, and the Parks and Rec staff kicked in and spent a morning with us, which was fun. And then the Bexley girls soccer team has joined us as well. We had hoped to have this evening our first Wednesday weed and garden party, but unfortunately, because of the rain, we have to postpone it. But I had a last minute sign up this morning too. So I think there was about 15 or 16 of us that were ready to come out this evening and, weed and work. And then we were going to provide some light refreshments after. So we're going to try it again on July the 10th at 5 o'clock. So save the date if you're out and about and want to help.
Good, good.
Okay.
And we could say that tomorrow, Jim Wilson will be the celebrity.
Oh, I
bloomer.
didn't realize.
Yes.
Using the term celebrity very loosely.
I agree. Notorious, do you like that better?
I'd rather be the notorious.
That's what, maybe we should go with that. That's more
Notorious, yeah.
exciting. Notorious.
Yeah. I wanted to mention that Elena sent an email to some of us that the city would underwrite the cost of attending or being part of a Franklin County rainwater master class program at $75. She told me that there was one spot left. If anybody wanted to apply and do it, I know Mary was at the organizational meeting.
Oh, frequent. No, that was for the pollinator pathway.
Oh,
Is this something different?
yes. This
It starts in August. I think it's a 5 or 6 week program that is on, I think, either Tuesdays or Wednesdays evenings from 6 to 8,
Mhm.
where they're talking about, the installation of rain gardens and the plant selections and all of that.
Yeah,
So-
they put rain gardens in over on James Road. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So if you want to see what they look like, they're kind of interesting. But I think it was weren't they trying to do something like that here? But there was problems because of the right of way, or am I confused?
Not in Bexley,
Okay.
not in Bexley. I don't think that we've had an opportunity yet to talk about the installation of rainwater gardens along our roadways or anything. But I mean, I think that, I mean, I know I've had a lot of clients who are interested in having it just for their own rear yards. You know, what can you do? What can't you do?
Mhm.
There are some, you know, kind of tips that are helpful or not.
Yeah.
So more to come on that, but if anybody wants to do it, let me know because then the city pay for it. A golf cart tour, hopefully now
Yeah.
with a release, right? So,
So, yes, legally, I believe we will be doing the golf cart tour on October 11th. And we're gonna meet in the parking lot at 12:45 with the launch at 1 PM. And I am not paying Dick, but I did bribe him. He's going to help again.
Dick O'Donnell.
Yes, and I think, you know, the last time we filled up our spots very quickly. So if any of you do wish to be on this great tour, let me know. And we do have it set up so that the city will have registration. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. And fall is my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, right.
How many golf carts are you going to employ?
Well, we're gonna try for 15.
15
and
golf carts?
15 golf carts, and, you know.
With a police escort?
I might be going out and buying one. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, pretty much fun. If you
Yeah.
could just have that visual picture of 15
Yeah.
golf carts going
Yeah.
down the street.
Only about 2% of the number of golf carts in Bexley. So.
Yeah, that's probably
That's
true.
right, that's true,
probably
Jim.
Hey,
So
be
if you have
fun.
a golf cart and you want to participate,
Yeah,
do let me know.
I'm gonna
okay.
fly.
That might be a good present for Dee for Christmas, Dave.
Oh.
And Troy's not here. So Grant, let's go on to your report.
All right, the Arbor Day tree giveaway, we gave away 30 northern catalpas. We only planted 5 of them. They all got returned, so we found other locations in the city for them.
Do you have any understanding of why?
Well, they see a free tree and then we show up to say, hey, here's your free tree, and they're like, oh, I don't want it, it gets too big. So we're.
Well, so there, you know, there's always lessons to learn. So should we be looking at a smaller variety of tree?
Well, the whole goal is canopy
I
coverage.
know, I know.
So, I mean, if we want to provide red buds and Japanese maples, I'm sure people would love that.
No.
Yeah,
But
but
that's not really the goal behind the program. I don't know how successful this program is because we end up planting more on city property than we do on
Well,
residential
I
property.
mean, I think, you know, we learn something every day. So if it's one of those things that the idea and the reality don't mesh, then we need to figure out something else.
Yeah. The mulch volcano program, I don't know that we have any differences. I know the guys have them in their trucks. I'm not counting how many they pass out or anything. So, and they haven't said anything about it. So,
I guess one of the questions would be, since I know that most of the contractors within the city, I think, received a letter and some information, whether you feel that their employees have been more diligent, or do you see the same old thing?
I see the same old thing. So, yeah, I know, it's hard to go back from already having a mulch volcano. That requires a lot of work and money to do that. I do see it's not as, I don't see it as often in the new plantings that we are planting currently. Most people just are choosing not to put mulch
At all?
at all, and then the weed eaters are killing them. So it's kind of a fine line of, you know, you
Which is the
take your
worst.
finger at them
Yeah.
for one thing, and then, you know, you find out that they're doing something else. So it's, yeah, so.
Well, we
it's
have
a
to
constant
educate.
battle.
Yeah, you have to educate them, I think. I don't know, but I went on the forestry website tonight to find out who to contact about my street tree. And I saw it was you, and I tried to send you an email, but I noticed that you've got, I don't know who did it, but your website looks great with all that information about why you shouldn't volcano mulch. So anybody that goes onto the site is going to see the information. And like I said, I thought it was very well done. The link to you though doesn't work.
Oh, really?
That's on purpose, right?
Ah, I'm not in control of that.
I wasn't gonna say that. And then the link to the ordinance also doesn't work. So I don't know who takes care of that, but like I said, I thought that anybody that goes on the forestry site and sees about the volcano mulching is gonna come away with, good information. So kudos to whoever did that.
Take photos of the
Which ones?
The ones in your tree, not in the tree lawn, but right there at the edge lawn where you've edged. The mature trees were beautifully done.
Oh, thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
The
Oh,
state
and
of,
also, I'm sorry, one more thing. I just want to say, that I've told, I'm in this tree study group. There's 60 of us in this group. And I told them about Bexley, now having this ordinance and they were all extremely interested. And I have several who've asked me for more information so that they can share it with their communities. So I was thinking, do we talk to other suburbs of Columbus or Columbus about, these types of ordinance that we've done that could possibly be something that other cities emulate, and then which has that trickle down effect, especially for the landscaping contractors? I mean, is there
you're
some
talking
way?
about the mulch volcano
Yeah,
ordinance?
yeah.
Yeah, that's the mayor. He
Okay.
doesn't ask. It's just the mayor and whoever's on city council, they do that.
Okay,
So that would be a question for him.
okay, thank you.
The state of the urban forest, right now we're gonna get into the heat and humidity. So anthrax, you're gonna start, or not anthrax, or anthracnose.
Way to
get us
out of the meeting,
Right. So a lot of foliar diseases and stuff. I mean, nothing that's gonna kill a tree, but you're gonna start seeing leaves yellow out and fall, get spotty. The buckeyes and the horse chestnuts are gonna start getting scorched
Yeah.
on them.
I think the tulip trees are being impacted on Roosevelt. I noticed today. It looks like fall.
Yeah, I mean, the London Plains on Main Street will also start,
Mm.
so that's something you'll start seeing currently throughout the city.
Sad.
And I know Spencer's still working on the tree plotter shape file. So I don't have, that's be his report for next time he's here.
Any questions for Grant? So do you see any diseases, Grant, on the trees? Any insects, any unusual, anything?
I mean, there's always insects. I mean, you got a lot, you'll start getting the sticky mildew on your cars and stuff, and that's from the insects feeding on the trees. But major insects currently, no. I mean, we still, ash trees, we're still fighting those, EAD. But the major ones, the Asian longhorn beetle, the oak wilt, and sudden oak death, I don't see anything of that in the city.
And have you seen any other species besides the maples be threatened with the drought conditions we've had the last few years?
Colorado blue spruces, they're dying all over the place. I mean, they need the colder winters. So
They need colder winters.
yeah, the winters just aren't cold enough for them to go full dormancy, which is causing the issue with them. But as of right now, no, I don't.
Have you seen the spotted lanternfly?
Have not.
And no cicadas. Here.
Yeah, that was, I thought it was supposed to be a heck of a year, but be careful what you wish for.
We're on the North Shore, it was unbelievable. I got photos of plant materials covered in.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Grant? Okay, Grant, you're home free. You
So I
got
can
a
go.
charged computer and you're done,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So Ellen, it's with gratitude that we say goodbye to you. So and maybe tree commission members could add their own list. I was looking at just words to describe your involvement with the tree commission. I could say it's been trend setting. Your work is organized, it's professional, you're personable, you're friendly, you reach out, you follow through, you're creative, your designs are appropriate for a first ring suburb. Anybody else want to add some good things?
You're nice.
Good sense of humor.
I put up with us for this long.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Elena is an unflappable individual and she has carried this with all of us with kindness, with efficiency, and we are going to miss you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
So, every year, sometimes it's around Christmas time, sometimes it's someplace else. I always say to Elena the same phrase. Don't you wonder what we ever did before you came? And she's never answered that question. Yeah. So we have just the tiniest possible little gift for you, but something that I figure you'll figure out the symbolism and the segue
Oh.
from idea to gift. So.
Thank you.
Yes, and Dave, it seems like a good time to talk about you. Oh, so Dave was an original founding member of the Tree Commission when it expanded from 5 to 7 members in 2002. And along with that team was also Paige Crane and Molly O'Donnell. And I'm trying to think of Chris Linda. I was there and I can't remember the other couple folks. Can you?
Well,
I can't remember, but we can.
we met at locations.
Yeah, we did. I don't know. I don't know if you knew that, but when we first started, we met all over the city, so we'd have a sense of the plantings in that city. So we met down at the Heritage House. We met at different churches, at different synagogues, in classrooms at St. Charles. I mean, it was really fun. Yeah, it was really fun. And everybody had to read where they were meeting, so they looked at the agenda. That's always a plus. But now that we're into high tech here and sunshine laws, it became a little bit too hard. So, and I'm going to just recount the first 2 projects Dave did in 2002 was a long-range plan for Drexel Circle, which was irrigation. So far we've gone through at least 2 or 3 irrigation systems grant, I think there. Two, uplighting, the inner row of horn beams, which was highly controversial, Yeah, wasn't it? To raise the height of the boxwood a little bit higher because it felt just a little bit too low. And then, the stone walls. So it seems like minor things, but I would have to say, I think Drexel Circle is a jewel. And I always remember Keith Meyer, Karen McCoy's mentor, who said he'd bring in people from New Albany just to look at Drexel Circle and say, you don't have to install things on every square foot of your landscape. Yes, something you could pass along.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
So Dave, we also have a small gift for you and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes. I would tell. So, okay, so on we go.
I will say I'm not convinced we're gonna see that much less of Elena, given how many projects we've got to review.
Well, I don't know. Wait till the person starts to review her plan. She may decide she could find a more helpful gig somewhere else.
Right?
Yeah, more positive. So if we go on to old business, we have some things we've talked about before. We talked about infilling all of our tree vacancies in Bexley within 3 to 5 years and what will our plan look like. So I want to kind of go back to the mayor's report that he didn't highlight, which is dovetailing our priorities with some funding that the Bexley Beautification Fund has. We're collegial, but we all make our independent decisions. So the Bexley Beautification Fund has let me see if I get this right, $106,000 in their fund, and $80,000 of that is unaccounted for. And so they want to participate in areas where, that are important to the city, but they also have their own ideas and they wanted to focus on different areas of the community. So in the South area, they wanted to put funds towards the refresh of College and Livingston Gateway, Elena. And, that's just such an important gateway for the city. So much traffic, so many challenges, so many issues, but they just felt they could do better.
Is there enough money to buy Cat's tires and just?
Probably. Yeah, probably. That's a CIC thing, right? Yeah.
I'll ask that.
Yeah, ask that. I don't know. Jim. Oh, you're not on
I'm
CIC,
not on CIC.
but land use strategy.
Yeah, well, I'll bring that up next
Okay.
week.
Okay.
For a Mexican restaurant?
Yeah.
Priorities.
The Mexican restaurant.
Seems to come up every time land use is discussed.
Oh, really?
I don't know why?
I don't know. Yeah. Okay. And then in Central Bexley, they were talking about improving Fair Avenue, feeling that there could be more trees planted in a more naturalized area. Ellen has been in conversation with Grant, and Grant said that was done a few years ago. So my suggestion was going to be to have it, to see if you had time, Grant, to walk it with Ellen and Paige and relook at the area. And Dee Dee, yeah, and Dee Dee too. And then in North Bexley, the Roosevelt medians was the top priority. And that's a good match with what the Tree Commission's survey showed. And then the advisors also liked the idea of reinforcing Mayor Kessler's concept of a wider variety of trees in Commonwealth to kind of strengthen the Arboretum concept. So those were the four things that the Beautification Fund advisors. So Ellen and Barb, any additional comments on those?
No,
That's right. Yeah. So, so we'll just see how we can, how all those play out, collaboratively, I would hope. And see within those which might rise to the top as more immediate.
How do we, how did the infilling work? I mean,
What is infill?
well, no, I know what it is, but I mean, how, like, how soon do you plant trees in spaces that need planted? How do you decide where you're gonna plant? Because I see a lot of potential opportunities, and it's like, I'm happy to help if, if you want me to
So
plant trees.
typically, when a tree comes down in the wintertime, we replace it that fall. And it all depends on budget.
Okay.
So my budget I have a budget for tree planting, but it covers landscape and trees, and it covers all aspects of it. So like the Broad Street medians, I'm replacing, 50 to 60 trees. I wouldn't say that, that's probably exaggeration, but I'm replacing 20 to 30 of those trees a year at least, and they're $400 a pop. So that comes out of that bucket of money. And the Drexel trees that got hit the other day, that's $400 a pop. There's 5 of those, 4 or 5 of those. I mean, that all comes out of the bucket of money. So
Sure.
I have a list of trees of what we've removed. Those are priority on that, on the replacement list. And then if I have enough money to cover that, then that's what we do. And if we have additional monies to do infill tree plantings or find other locations, then we will.
I see.
So that's how that works.
Yeah, so I think Grant's pretty diligent about infilling trees that have come down in his lifetime of being here. But some of the things we're talking about are in former lives that haven't been infilled in 15 or 20 years simply because they didn't have this organized program. And that's why we're working on infilling all these spaces. The Ellen's campaign last year raised
$40,000 for trees to go in this year. Think you won't be back though?
For 100 trees. Yeah, it all again depends on how much money is in that bucket of grant dollars, because I can't go into contract with a company if I don't have the money. And then the BCF grant is a reimbursement fund, right? So I have to have that money first. So it's not like I can plant $80,000 worth of trees. I have to have 40,000 to cover the grant, and then all of a sudden I have $40,000 sitting in an account that gets at the end of the year that can't be spent, that gets thrown back into the fund. So it's kind of a
timing is.
Yeah, I need to the grants need to be not reimbursement grants, but instead here's your money.
Well,
So
what,
then I can,
how could we do that, Grant? Could we put that in escrow? Could the community foundation put it in an escrow or something so that it's
what the city's done is they've opened up a grant PO. So
okay?
you're supposed to get your grant money from that PO. Well, the mayor runs that. PO. And the mayor has a lot of grants out there. So knowing up front that we're going to have $40,000 in grants for tree planting, he can add that to the budget for 2025, right? If it's there in the fall when I go to do tree planting, which is the big question.
So,
But are you using money?
About that process, because that's one thing we talked about, because when that letter goes out in the fall for the solicitation of 24 for the 25 project, I always reflect back on substantiate where the 23 money went, and we've stated the project more, would be 100 trees for our 25th year of the tree commission.
Right. And then again, there might be money in that, the grant PO to cover this, and it might not be an issue, but that's, I've asked the mayor, how much is left in that account. I have not gotten it.
So maybe it's a Hallie Mayer grant
It
conversation.
could be.
Okay,
Yeah, it just seems like
Okay.
back to the process.
we'll get that done, Grant. Okay, so my idea was that we've already walked Parkview and Broad. And so, and with folks and used the tree plotter program more or less. So if Grant or Spencer had time to verify or not verify where we saw holes, those would be two good thoroughfares to start with. And my assumption is, I can't remember the numbers, Jim, but we probably
We
came
can
up,
we can cover the 100 trees.
we
I
could
mean,
cover the
what-
100 trees, yeah.
Grant may disagree because we were being generous in terms of where we thought trees could be planted on the theory that if we didn't identify a spot, there's no chance of a tree being planted there. And we can redo it. I mean,
Correct. I mean, I think you had 56 new locations for Broad Street.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that to me is a crazy number.
That's
I
what-
mean, I don't know that you could plant 56 trees on Broad Street, being oaks and being spaced 50 feet apart. I mean, and then there's a lot of underground utilities that need to be marked and located and stuff like that, which dictates, and, the sight line, you can't be too close to an intersection, and new rules like that. And also, like on Stanwood by the tennis courts, there's a gas line there that's
Right.
only like 18 inches below grade.
I know, that's always been an issue.
And
right?
everybody's like, oh, there's no trees planted here. And then we
Right.
tried to plant in front yards, which
Right.
nobody wanted that either.
Oh,
So there's a lot of issues that most residents or people don't see when they say, hey, I want a tree planted in this
Sure.
location. And you just can't.
So again, we thought when we were talking that if we did Parkview and Broad, and then if we think about South Bexley, oops, not
There you go.
second time, right? Yeah,
We are related.
Yeah, that maybe look at College. Or we could look at Drexel, because I know that you were thinking that Drexel was going to be your project for fall to kind of come back in after the construction was done.
Correct. I think we do need to talk about a different species of tree on underneath the power lines at Drexel, and the same on College. Because those trees on the, east side of College are getting hacked back every year, every couple of years. I just think a right species for the right location. And
They're all up the wires.
yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely something, what do we just, as we cut them down when they die, or do we cut down 10% this year, 10% next year, or do we do a complete clear cut and remove them all? But it is something, I mean, it's more of like,
Parkview,
yeah,
Parkview, like Parkview.
yeah, but like
Oh,
Parkview.
like Parkview?
But
You wanna
yeah,
look
I
at the
mean,
Emails?
I think there's more discussion to be had, but yes, I mean, I think we need to have 5 or 6 specific trees for under power lines. And then the committee here can vote on which one they want planted.
As long as all the leaves turn red in the fall, we'll be okay.
Right.
Okay, so that was the thinking. That was the thinking. And, I don't know if you would want to look at Broad and Parkview Grant and see, what's possible from those numbers, if you'd like to walk it with us, or you want to just do it on your own time.
Yeah, we're not quite ready to start thinking about fall planting. We will hear probably soon. Right now, we're on 4th of July mode.
I bet you are.
Probably end of July, we'll start, looking at the maps that you've provided us, and then I should have a good grasp of what, my bucket of money is full of, and we should be able to get a pretty good list of tree plantings.
So I think, are you still pruning the parade route every year?
Mhm.
So I was thinking of what a great idea, I like all my ideas, of it would be if the parade route changed every year, because then all
There
the
you go.
streets would be pruned.
Yeah,
Hey, now wait, I'm on
Vice
the
Chair
parade
decides.
route.
Yeah, I know. All right, Jim, let's go on to planting and tree maintenance study group.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have time for the full discussion.
That's
that
all
we
right.
have
Let's get it
for,
on the
but,
table.
one of the, items that is, part of the planning and tree maintenance, plan that we've been working on is, the question of whether we should continue our current practice of a single tree on each street or, which we would most folks would label, at least on the right of way, that as a monoculture, or whether we should consider in some or all places a variety of trees, and that there could be a variety of approaches to that. One could be a tall tree and a short tree on certain streets. One could be we plant a variety of trees that are all roughly the same height on given streets. As long as I've been on the tree commission, we've had a street tree for each segment of every street, but I think it's worth the discussion of whether we want to vary that. I think it's probably more than a 7-minute discussion. There is, and I'm not sure that I sent this around. I thought I had, but my mind probably wandered elsewhere. There is a database that Luke, our new member, shared with us from Cornell that actually lets you check different characteristics that you'd like in a tree, and then including tolerating salt spray, tolerating salty soil, lots of other things. I can circulate this, and then you can actually look at what trees might, thrive in that atmosphere. So, I think it's worth a discussion. I will say the counterpoint to that is we really don't have a monoculture anywhere, because not very many streets do we even have a consistent street tree, because we don't usually remove trees, and most folks don't plant the same species in their yards adjacent to it. But there is the issue of if you have a monoculture, if, for instance, I think the thing that springs to mind is the part of Cassidy that has maples pretty much consistently along it. When we rebuilt Cassidy, if those were all to die at once, we might not be very happy that we lost every single street tree on that street. So that's the issue. Beyond that, in terms of the planning and maintenance group, we have sort of an outline, and that we're going to meet on, you got an email while you were in this meeting, Susan. We're going to meet on July 1st and try to turn that outline into more of a draft report, and we'll be sharing that. So, maybe if we have less applications in August, we could spend maybe a half hour talking about the issue of monoculture, because I do think it's a really important discussion for our city, and not one that we want to rush through.
And, cities approach it differently. Everybody travels, and I see a lot of monocultures in streets. I mean, Arlington, New Albany, everywhere else. But it doesn't mean that that's what they will continue to do. It only means what they have done. So it's a worthy discussion, and I valued this information that Luke found for us, and I had thought I attached it here, but I obviously didn't.
Well, I think I said I would email it to everyone, and I obviously didn't. So-
Okay,
you
well,
did. You sent it.
Oh, I did?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
got it.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, I looked
Did you?
at it.
I
Yeah.
don't think I got it. Oh, yeah, I did. I'm sure I did.
Well,
Okay.
perhaps,
I'll send it again.
Yeah, no, I got it. But perhaps in that discussion, maybe define monoculture. I mean, especially what you think, Grant. But I mean, you don't have to do it right now, but I'm just saying for future discussions. And
Is different for everybody,
yeah,
so.
and the diversity. Oh, we might be staying a little longer than we planned. But I also think there's something to be said for diversity too. And I'm just wondering, with the way our winters are, like, are we putting down enough salt anymore that it impacts trees?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Don't you
Actually,
need those white globs?
If you don't see blacktop,
What's that?
if it snows and within 1 hour, you're not looking at blacktop, we get a lot of phone calls. So,
Okay,
yeah, we dump
okay,
a couple thousand tons of salt on our roads every year.
okay.
You missed the discussion Grant and the mayor had about the year John Brennan decided We don't need to plow quite as much as we used to.
Oh,
How did that go?
Not well for John
Not
Brennan.
real well.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I know, that's when I went around with Jim, just to get the whole list of a tree for every street, and of course, it was whatever was predominant on that street.
At that
So,
time,
At the
right.
time, yeah.
That was Jim Tornis.
Yeah.
Speaking of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was on. He was on.
Yes,
Yes.
he was on our,
Right.
yes.
Yes.
Wow.
And he actually came to the Wise Tree Seminar.
Wow.
Yeah, it was,
did he?
yes, yes,
Oh,
it was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
So then I'd like you also to think of goals for the Arboretum. I mean, as I distill it, to me, an Arboretum is additional species and education. So I know that Ellen has been diligent about adding additional species in Commonwealth as she can.
As much as I can. And I think that, so I've been keeping a list that Susan forwarded me a long time ago, that this was kind of the basis for the Arboretum.
Hmm.
And we had the genus and species and not the cultivar. And I think that in order for us to kind of take it to the next level, we need to start tracking what the cultivars are, because we're starting to reach, we're almost maxed out, not maxed out, but we're almost reaching that point where we have one of every tree that exists within our range, right? Within our zone. That is obviously shifting a little bit. So when we can get the crepe myrtles to start blooming
Yeah.
here, like all the time, I would be
Cool.
so excited. So excited. So that's another thing that that I think that we need to start doing is looking at that as sort of like, let's start tracking the cultivars, because there are different, I mean, there's so many different cultivars and some are better than others, and it actually makes a pretty big difference, but that will actually help both not only from an education standpoint, but it'll also expand, like for us to be able to say, we have so many different varieties of trees. Right now we're reaching, I'm like, well, okay, well, we have for instance, we have in here, an Acer palmatum, and that's all we're saying, right? But we're not saying, is it a Crimson Queen? Is it a Bloodgood? Is it, is it a Takayumaya? I always, or Shishigashira. So there are a lot of different ones that we can have in there that would start to show a little bit more of a showcase of the trees that we have. Just giving you guys as an aside, one of the things that Ben has asked Spencer and me to do is really look at filling out much more of the plantings around the pond at Commonwealth. So he came out, and just so you guys all know, he asked, why are there so much few plant material here? I thought that there was going to be a lot more. Well, A, they're a lot smaller and they will grow. But B, we literally increased the size of the pond by about 25 to 30%. And so that peanut butter, when it gets spread, gets much thinner. And so there wasn't quite as much dense planting as he was envisioning. I was like, well, made it bigger. The budget didn't change. So that's something that Spencer and I are going to be looking at in terms of what can we do. So it really does feel much more like a Chadwick when you walk in there and there's just a profusion of plants that you can walk through and identify them and do all of that. So just so you are aware that that is also kind of coming. And I think that'll be part of what can we do also with in terms of shrubs as well as trees. What are the variety and different cultivars of trees that we can list?
Well, and the mayor was at a portion of our Bexley Beautification Fund Advisors meeting, and I think that's where the impetus came from for making that a priority in our funding. That personal on the spot sermon was really helpful, inspiring. So, I mean, the good news is I think there would be funds there for you. So that's good. Okay, so and as we talked about, working with Ellen and Grant to, kind of discern the goal, for the focus for the fundraising for the coming year.
Yeah, just that letter of go out late September, very early October.
Right. So what else? Anything?
Ellen.
Okay.
Yeah, and well, and I think we've already discussed it. From that meeting, Bexley Beautification, it seemed like the focus wanted to be Fair Avenue and Grant, and after communicating with Grant, I think it's best that Paige, Dee and I walk with Grant along Fair, because there were some ideas, I think really even beyond trees, kind of coming up with an interesting design at Fair Avenue, since major art. for best.
So, yeah, so.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
It is a pretty unique island. and It is kind of planted, not right down the center. So which makes it kind of interesting, but yeah, I think having a plan and a design.
How about right at fourth, I just email or text you and you throw some available dates back to me
Yeah, we can do that.
so that then I can communicate with Dee Dee and Paige.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just, yeah, I'll do that.
So I just think it's exciting because it's a testimonial to the work that we all do, that Grant does, that Elena does, that Hallie's numbers show that since the Bexley Beautification Fund started, it has donated $1,450,000 to the city.
Amazing.
So that's
Amazing.
pretty amazing, pretty amazing. So
I had a quick question. And along where the police station is and along the fence where all those
Junipers?
evergreens that were
Yeah.
cut down, what, is there a plan for that?
I'm working on it.
Like I said, you're gonna see Ellen a lot.
Oh,
You
yeah.
Will not miss her.
I forgot.
Was there a reason they cut them all down before we had a plan? I just.
There was issues with the police department and then they were scratching the cars, so we cut it back off the fence and then they were like,
then what was step two?
step two was that they were in the alley and they needed cut back off the alley. And then, that's what we were.
And then
left
step
up.
three.
We're-
They're back.
They're gonna come back, yes. Well, yeah, I was also told that they would regenerate well, and I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, they're not going to regenerate on 6 inches of trunk.
Right.
Yeah,
So
so,
awful.
well, we won't,
For everything.
yeah, huh?
There's a first time for everything.
Right.
Would you like a motion to adjourn?
I would.
I move we adjourn.
Audra, thank you for coming. Next
you.
time you will be up here at this important dais.
I
So.
want to try not to miss us too much.
Yeah.